everybody, it's Laura, and welcome to the class of 74. We have a lot of trouble that Cynthia's in right at the moment. It would seem that she and her best friend Annabel, and her dear friend Mimi, and Annabel's brother Greg, there they are in Portchester, and it looks like Greg has just been caught using a fake ID. So, let's get right back to it and find out what happens to our merry little band of mischief makers. I'll see you on the other side. Have fun. Season 2, Episode 5. I Never Believe Me. The girls sat frozen in the Fitzgerald's new custom cruiser station wagon. That is, the Fitzgerald's new custom cruiser with a smashed-in door, watching the Portchester police officer approach the beer distributor building, where the proprietor, whom the cop addressed as Dennis, was still standing in the doorway, looking like a deer caught in the headlights. Cynthia's mind was racing. What do we do? What do we do? The beer guy called Greg Bernard, the name on the fake ID Greg used to buy the beer from Dennis. The cop asked Dennis if Bernard was a good customer, and when he said, "Oh, yes," adding that he was a good kid, too, the officer revealed that the name on the license he was holding belonged to a 17-year-old named Gregory Fitzgerald, which meant it was illegal to sell alcohol to Greg. And Dennis said he was a good customer. Oh, boy. Greg just stood there, eyes on the police officer, his game face on. The evidence of the crime was sitting between Cynthia and Annabel in the middle of the back seat, a styrofoam cooler of beer on ice. The officer was facing the distributor building, talking to Dennis. Cynthia kept her eyes on the cop while she felt around for Greg's blazer, found it, and pulled it off the hanger. When the cop glanced back at Greg and motioned for him to come over, Cynthia pulled his blazer down into her lap. She undid the blazer button, gave the other side to Annabel, and the girls spread it over the cooler, trying to tuck it in a little to conceal the blue and white styrofoam ice chest. Then Annabel plunked an elbow on top of it and tilted her head to rest on her hand. Get ready to act shaken up, Memes. I am shaken up, Mimi said. I think I can help Greg if I can get to the cop now and then get to the beer guy before the cop does, Cynthia said. She yanked her door handle and practically fell out. Oh, no, she cried, standing and looking at the damaged side of the car. She covered her mouth with both hands and staggered back a few steps. Horrified for real, actually. The car looked like a dragon had smashed in the side of it with its tail and then started chewing on the wood paneling. It's unbelievable. The cop's attention was on her now. Cynthia pointed at the Camaro and cried, "They smashed into us and were just going to drive away." Oh my God, I forgot about Mimi. She lunged for the passenger door, but it wouldn't open. Good, Cynthia thought. Officer, help, please. Our friend was just in the hospital and now this. She ran around the car to the driver's side door, flung it open and leaned in. Is he watching? She asked under her breath. Sort of, Annabel reported. Slide out this way, Memes, and get shaken up. We gotta talk to the cop with Greg and then get to the beer guy, okay? Come on. Mimi slid over, and Cynthia made a show of helping her out. Mimi put her arm around Cynthia's neck and then nearly pulled her to the ground. Stand up a little. What should I do? Annabel whispered. Don't let anyone see under that coat, Cynthia said. In Cynthia's mind, there were 3 pieces of evidence that could nail them. 1, the beer. 2, the fake ID. And 3, the beer guy identifying Greg as Bernard. Annabel had the beer covered, so that was good. Now she and Greg had to do away with Bernard back to Covian, and then she had to get to, what had the cop called him? Dennis? Dennis, that was his name. She had to get her story straight with Dennis because he needed help as much as they did, because calling Greg Bernard had set him up to be charged with selling alcohol to a minor. Well, here went nothing. I've got to get Mimi to the bathroom, she called. Can you help me, Greg? She's pretty shaken up. Greg quickly strode over and put Mimi's arm around his neck. Mimi's head was bowed. She was holding her forehead in her hand. Is she hurt? The police officer asked. Cynthia gently pulled Mimi's hand away and brought her face up so the officer could see her nose, causing him to suck in his breath. That couldn't have just happened. Those injuries look a few days old. They are, Bibi said. But the new pain in my head is that jerk crashed into my car door and then he drove off. Oh, don't worry. He took a step closer. You're safe now. What's your name? Bibi. Well, Mimi, when the vehicle backed into you, did you hit your head? I don't know, she said, looking up at Greg. Well, how did you sustain those injuries to your face? Car accident, she said, but she couldn't slap her fist into her hand with great dramatic flair because she had her arm around Greg's waist. We stopped here, Cynthia said, because Mimi needed to use the bathroom. Greg said he knew the owner and thought he would probably let Mimi use it. He's not the owner, the cop told her. So we pulled in, she continued. Greg went inside to ask if it would be all right if Mimi used the bathroom, and then that genius over there smashed into us. They all turned to look. They were handcuffing the kids behind their backs now. When Cynthia looked back at the police officer, she saw the little guy with the greasy hair hightailing it back to his beat-up truck. Huh. All right. Who is Bernard? The officer asked, opening his patrol book again. Is it Bakovovian? Cynthia asked Greg. Yes, Bernard Backhovian. Oh, geez, Cynthia thought. That wasn't even close to what she said. Greg pulled himself together. We played together on a hockey travel team, but Bernard aged out, so now he's managing us. Aged out? The cop asked. 18's the cutoff. When he turned 19, he couldn't play anymore. You play around here? Oh, we play at a lot of Westchester teams, usually at the Ice Palace in Rye. Terry Connors in Stamford is our home ice. He looked interested. It's brand new, isn't it? Yeah, state of the art. Really nice. So why did Dennis call you Bernard? The cop asked. While you two are talking, Cynthia said, I need to take Mimi to the bathroom. Mimi was looking up at Greg, dreamy-eyed, gently pursing her lips as if she was expecting him to kiss her goodbye. So why did Dennis call you Bernard? The cop asked again. Uh-oh, back to that. thinks of me as an extension of Bernard, I guess, since I'm always with him. Let's go, Cynthia murmured to Mimi, taking her arm. Stop, the cop said. Cynthia's eyes moved over to him. Yes, sir? Head injuries are bad. I think Mimi needs to be checked out at the hospital, just to make sure she's okay. Let me think about it, please, Bibi said. Since I just went through protocol for a concussion, and they couldn't do anything for me, let me see how I feel in a little while. What you said makes no sense, Cynthia said as they walked away. Like any of this does. Wonder why they arrested those guys. Just hope the police move their car out of the way so we can get out of here. Dennis was still standing in the doorway of the store, holding the door open. He looked very glum. He's writing a summons, isn't he? My grandfather started this business 40 years ago, and now I'm going to be the one to get our permit pulled. Maybe not, Cynthia said. Not if we get our story straight. She glanced back over her shoulder to see where the cop was. May I use your bathroom? Mimi asked. Sure, straight back, on the left. Grab some Kleenex by the register on your way. There's no toilet paper in there. Ah, thanks. So he was thoughtful, Cynthia noted. Good. When he turned back to Cynthia, he looked noticeably more hopeful, which she supposed was the way one needed to be if one was in the business of selling alcohol to minors. We told the cops we stopped here because Mimi needed to use the bathroom. Greg said he knew you through his friend Bernard and thought you'd let her use it. So we stopped. He went in to ask you, and bam, that guy slammed into us. Dennis said, What about what your friend carried out of here? He was younger than she first thought. Everyone who had more power in a situation than she did seemed older to Cynthia. It's in the car, out of sight. At least she hoped it was. It wasn't like she had a whole lot of time to make sure. Oh, and Greg plays on a hockey travel team that Bernard aged out of. So he's the manager now. But they're always together when they come in, which is why we told him you mixed up their names. Dennis laughed to himself. Then he muttered an expletive and said, Yeah, of course they're hockey players. He bared his teeth and pointed to a silver front tooth. I played. He dropped his hand. So whose license was that? Greg borrowed it from the guy who really does manage the travel team. Oh, I know that, Bernard. The guy with the gimp hip. He can't play hockey. No, he can't, she said softly. She wondered how Clay was doing. Okay, Dennis said. I mixed up Bernard's name with the hockey player who always comes in with him. Yes, Cynthia said. That's it. That's exactly it. Well, that could fly, Dennis said slowly. And he swore. It better. If he writes me up, well, it's not going to be good. Let me put it that way. Let me see what Loudon's doing outside. The fact that he hasn't come in yet after you could be a good sign. Loudon's the police officer, she asked, following him to the front. Yeah. A few seconds later, he called. He's writing down your friend's information, which is good because it means he wants to wrap things up. Cynthia walked out to stand next to Dennis so she could see Officer Loudon, too. He had Greg's license and the registration laid on the hood of the station wagon and was using the windshield as a desk under his pad. She couldn't really see well, but it looked as though Annabel was pretending to be asleep on the cooler in the back seat. Well, that was pretty smart, Annabel. What did those guys in the Camaro do, anyway? He shrugged. Heroin. And my grandpa's lot. How'd they lock him up and throw away the key? That's my opinion. They watched the presumed dealers be loaded into the back of the police car. and soon they were driving away. Tow truck should impound the car soon, Dennis said. Then you'll be able to get out of here. And who knows, maybe some actual customers can come in and buy something today. Mimi emerged from the back of the store. She held out a $5 bill to Dennis. Somebody left this on the sink in the bathroom. That's your friend's money, Dennis said. You can just give it back to him. Maxie must have left it. Maxie? Cynthia asked. The guy in the old... He turned around to look into the parking lot, craned his neck, looked around, and then came back. Oh, he's gone. He looked at Cynthia, which isn't unusual when trouble starts. Who's Maxie? I mean, that wasn't the guy in the beat-up truck that was out there. He nodded. We thought that guy was going to rob us and then steal the car, Mimi told him. And he thought, Dennis said, your friend might be the out-of-town dealer the cops were expecting to arrive. They thought it was Greg? Greg? Oh my God, is that a joke? Does Greg look like a dealer to you? Well, he didn't look underage to me either. Touché, Cynthia said. It was about the only thing she remembered from French. Maxie gave him a sob story to see what kind of a role he was carrying. Sob story? Yeah, it was pretty good. Vietnam vet, no roof over his head, addict, has to go to dialysis 3 times a week or he's dead, no gas to get there. He studied Cynthia's face and then winked. Only the vet part is legit. Everything else was a bald-faced lie. Who is he? Narc, he mouthed. Dennis squinted at Mimi. What happened to your face? That didn't happen today when that sleazebag hit you, did it? No. He raised an eyebrow. You're not going to sue my grandpa, are you? No offense, Mimi said, but I just want to get out of here. I don't want to sue anybody. You guys have your story straight or what? Straight as an arrow, Dennis said. He walked out and held the door for the girls. Are we good, Officer Loudon? He called. As long as you didn't sell Greg anything, Dennis. He turned to Greg. And he did not. Correct? He let Mimi use the bathroom. So she feels a lot better, Cynthia said, walking to the car. Is that correct, Greg? You did not purchase any alcohol from Dennis? No, sir. Okay. Have your father use this with your insurance company, he said, ripping a form out of his book. Any problems, he can call me. My number's there. Tow truck should be here momentarily, and then you can get out and on your way. He turned around and talked into his radio, taking a few steps away. They exchanged looks. Greg with Cynthia, Cynthia with Dennis, Dennis with Greg, and Mimi with her $5. In the car, it looked as though Annabel was knocked unconscious over the ice chest. Or like she was clinging to it like wreckage at sea for a couple of days. Golly, they all looked dreadful. You know where that tow truck is, the officer was saying. I've got some young people here from Brighton, Connecticut who have tickets to the women's final over at Forest Hills. Can you tell how much my heart bleeds for them? A voice replied over the radio. The officer came over to Greg. Listen, make sure to check the brakes on the way out. It doesn't look like anything's rubbing on the car. You should be fine to get home after the match. So go have a good time. Be careful on the road. He saluted them and then walked out of the parking lot at a brisk pace. He has to walk, Bibi asked. Station's only 2 blocks from here. That's why Maxie likes to set up the scumbags here. Easy in and fast exit out of sight. Oh, look, here's the tow truck. They all thanked Dennis, and he walked back into the store. But then as they were climbing into the car, he called, Hey, big day October 1st in these parts. Don't you guys go forgetting your friends in Portchester. We won't be as convenient as your local package store, but you know we're good guys here. We won't forget you, Greg promised. Inside the car, Annabel really was asleep on top of the ice chest. The clanking of the tow truck chains roused her, and she asked if everything was all right. Greg turned up his sleeves and lit a Tiparillo, which he held between his teeth as they drove out. They drove past the Lifesaver factory again, but then headed west on Westchester Avenue to get back on 95 after the toll. They decided to cool it with the beer for the moment. They were a little rattled still. They couldn't believe how close Greg had come to getting busted. And wasn't that good they already had a story made up about how it came to pass they had been hit by a couple of drug dealers in the parking lot of a Portchester beer distributor instead of being further on 95 the way to Forest Hills. They decided to downplay the beer distributor and play up the Lifesaver factory, Mimi's need for the bathroom, and what a lucky thing Greg's friend from hockey, good old Bernard, had a friend with a store in Portchester with a bathroom in it. The less said, the better, Annabel advised her brother. And don't listen to Cynthia, because she'll keep piling and piling on details until Mom and Dad will know for sure she's lying. After getting back on 95, they were quiet for a couple of minutes. And then Cynthia hung up Greg's jacket, saying there was nothing really special about a cooler being in the back seat. They didn't have to have his coat get all messed up on it. Lots of cars had coolers in the back seat. Coolers with soda and things. But theirs wasn't soda. It was ice-cold Bud. Maybe we could just open one, Cynthia suggested. Because if we only have one open, it wouldn't be hard to hide it if something were to happen. If something were to happen, Greg exclaimed. We've already had more than our share of the police today, thank you. I want my own beer. I don't want to drink my sister's spit. Well, I don't want to drink yours either, dear brother, Annabel told him. I'll split one with you, Mimi, he said gallantly. Mimi beamed, pleased in the extreme. Cynthia didn't know what was going on up there exactly between Mimi and Greg, but it was clear they liked each other, which was great. But what about the hockey problem? Who Bobby Orr was? Cynthia and Annabel had a cigarette and split a beer. Cynthia felt pretty good about getting them out of that jam. But being a good liar, she thought, as she savored the cool fizz of beer in her mouth, was, to quote her favorite teacher last year, a double-edged sword. On one side, lying could get you out of trouble, but on the other, it made you a liar. Who wanted to be a liar? No one liked liars. Cynthia wanted people to like her, but she sure seemed to be lying a lot lately. Well, it's because of that dumb school. That book she had ended up reading that they didn't end up reading for English, The Outsiders. There was something in that had struck her, something Pony Boy had said. I lied to myself all the time, but I never believe me. Pony Boy. That made her think of the little bottles of beer at the drive-in, which made her think about Clay again. It made her wonder how Katie is doing, and Evan. Would they get suspended? Not Fred. As they passed a large truck on the turnpike, Cynthia noticed the driver in the lane next to them was looking straight down into the car at the beer in Greg's hand. Greg saw it too, but instead of hiding the beer, he grinned at the driver and toasted him with it. The driver smiled back, swept his eyes over the three girls, and gave Greg the thumbs-up sign. Guys, could you imagine girls doing such a thing? Maybe she would. No way, that was dumb. She would look down out of a truck, scope out three boys in a car with a girl, and then give the girl a thumbs up? No, she didn't think so. Aretha Franklin's Spanish Harlem came on, and Greg turned it up. Cynthia thought it was so cool what Ms. Franklin had to start calling people Ms. now, right? That magazine was coming out next month. Imagine that. A magazine called Ms. and the drinking age lowering to 18, all in 1 month. Anyway, Ms. Franklin had changed the lyrics of Spanish Harlem from a red rose up in Spanish Harlem to there's a rose in blackened Spanish Harlem. That was good for 1,000,000 records. She wondered how Lincoln was doing today. How would she feel as the only white kid? It was impossible to imagine, unless they moved to Africa or something. Maybe Ideal Standard would build a plant. She'd love to see her mother driving the station wagon around in the jungle. Rye, Mamaroneck, Larchmont, New Rochelle, and as they took the long, circular exit for the Hutchinson River Parkway South, another round of beers were opened. The Hutchinson was just Connecticut's Merritt Parkway, incognito over the state line. Same road, same state, no trucks, tolls, lots of trees. Traffic was light. They should be in Forest Hills in no time. They were nearing the Whitestone Bridge, and Cynthia hoped their luck would hold out traffic-wise. It felt like the lines for this particular toll had stolen entire weeks of her life. If it wasn't rush hour, it was construction, or something falling off a delivery truck, or someone having a flat tire, or the police were chasing somebody. It was always something, and you had to wait forever. But right now, there was nobody really in the toll booth line. How many times had she crossed the Whitestone Bridge? 100 times? Maybe 50. Well, let's see, she thought, partaking in her father's favorite pastime. Let's do mathematics. 15 years divided by 50 would be 3.3 trips a year over this bridge. No way. It was way more than that. They took the Whitestone Bridge to drop off or pick up her father at LaGuardia, because that's where the home base of the Eastern Shuttle to Washington was. And the Whitestone Bridge was also the way to John F. Kennedy International Airport, which, when Cynthia was little, used to be called Idlewild, where sometimes they picked up her father when he came home from a really long trip to Turkey or somewhere. Anyone who went to Europe had to fly out of JFK because it was the only airport around the area with runways long enough to accommodate 747s, which also meant anyone who wanted a nonstop flight to the West Coast had to use JFK too. Way back when, the Whitestone Bridge had also been the magical way to reach the most incredibly wonderful thing that had ever happened to Cynthia's young life, the New York World's Fair of 1964 and 65. When she was 9 and 10 years old, her parents took her parents' friends took her friends' parents took her, the school took her. She could never get enough. Imagine her surprise and delight then when she went to Disneyland in California a couple years later, and the first thing she saw there was the Magic Skyway from the Ford Pavilion. She couldn't believe it. And there was the Carousel of Progress from General Electric's Progress Land. And then the boat ride through the Pepsi Pavilion. It's a small world, right? The pieces of the Four Winds Tower that had danced and twisted in the wind over the pavilion, the Pepsi Pavilion. In New York wasn't there, though. And she missed it. It was really cool. It's all different colors, all different kinds of pieces moving. Some architect guy had designed it. And then the very best thing she had loved most of all, well, besides the dragon train, they had this big dragons that pulled the cars around. It was cool. The very best thing, there was a gigantic Abraham Lincoln who talked and moved and said such beautiful things. And he looked so kind and sad, but she loved him. She never did get to climb up into his lap. She couldn't climb into his lap in Los Angeles at Disney World either. Of course, she couldn't sit in Lincoln's lap at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington either. All very disappointing if you wanted Abraham Lincoln as your father. The Whitestone Bridge was how they drove to Manhasset, Long Island, once a year, where the chairman of Dad's company held a very fancy cookout. And it was the way they went to see the Miracle Mets at Shea Stadium. Shea Stadium, where she also saw in person twice the hunky Joe Namath play with the Jets, but whose recent knee surgery had everybody depressed about the Jets' prospects this year, or the lack of them without Joe. Cynthia was so familiar with the Whitestone Bridge, she could hear and feel the rhythmic thump-thump, thump-thump, thump-thump of the car rolling over the steel expansion joints just by looking at it. But if she happened to be asleep when they went over the Whitestone, thump-thump, thump-thump, thump-thump always woke her up because it meant something exciting was soon going to happen close by. "Who's got a quarter?" Greg called. "I do," Cynthia said, digging into her purse. The exact change lane was always so much shorter. As they edged forward, the uniformed man in the toll looked bored but polite as he held his hand out to take their quarter. Surely there must be a better way to do these tolls than to hand these guys coins. "We're not so far away now," Annabel said. "We'll be in Queens on the other side." She looked at Cynthia. "You know, my dad used to walk across this bridge when he was a kid." Mimi turned around. "Why?" Annabel shrugged. "I don't know. To get somewhere, I guess. He grew up somewhere around here." That was hard for Cynthia to imagine, because everything was so gray and grimy around here. All these warehouses. Once they were through the toll, the lanes steeply rose. Dad said before they fixed it, the bridge moved a lot. They charged even the kids 10 cents to walk on the bridge, but they thought it was worth it because they would run out and stand there when a hurricane was coming, and the bridge would go, ooh, ooh, ooh. And it was really cool, apparently. "I think that's scary," Cynthia said. Greg called. "Dad was a thrill seeker, no doubt about it." "Dad was also from the wrong side of the tracks," Annabel added. "He married a girl that was really much higher in class than he." Cynthia looked at her. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just like it sounds. He was from a lousy home." Mimi turned. "My father wasn't from a very good home either. He grew up on a farm where they didn't feed the cats, so they'd eat the rats." Mimi had said that the other day. It was still hard to believe that Mr. Watson ever grew up there. "What did your father's father do?" Cynthia asked. "Drank," Annabel said, looking out her window. "He worked for the railroad," Greg said, sounding annoyed with his sister. "He operated the track switchers." "If you say so," Annabel said, "'cause I never saw him do anything." Cynthia and Annabel had known each other for how long? And Cynthia had never heard this before. All she had ever known about Mr. Fitzgerald was he had been in the Navy, he went to Columbia, and he made a ton of money. As they ascended the long arch of the bridge, Greg moved into the center lane. When they crested and leveled out, Cynthia automatically pushed Greg's jacket to see the Manhattan skyline across the blue-gray East River. There was a big barge below, being pushed by a little tugboat. She tried not to look at the shoreline. That beautiful water and then all those dilapidated warehouses, disintegrated pilings, broken concrete, weeds, and garbage. Everywhere, garbage. The city should be ashamed and clean it up. Suddenly, Greg slammed on the brakes, and all the girls put hands out to stop themselves from hitting something. Maybe I should put this thing on, Mimi said, fumbling with the seatbelt. What's going on? Traffic, Greg growled. Oh, crud. I think this lane's closed ahead. Oh, yeah, there's a junky old car sitting in the middle of the road down there. Look, great. That's right, just park in the middle of the road, guy. Tie up traffic and take your flippin' time, why don't you? Look at him, just standing out there, blocking everything. There was a black guy trying to open the hood of an old sedan ahead. He looked very stressed out, and it was no wonder. Everybody was honking at him and rolling down their windows to yell at him. Go around him, Cynthia urged. Go around him how? Greg wanted to know. Nobody's going to let me in. The drivers of the cars that were inching past them did look tough, angry, and a few murderous. What can the poor guy do? Annabel said. His car's obviously broken down. What is it that anyone expects him to do? Pick it up and carry it? I hope we don't miss the batch, Mimi said. Oh, we won't, Greg told her. If anything, we'll just miss lunch. So we're just going to sit here, Cynthia said after a minute. Because I will get out and I will stand in front of somebody and make them stop so we can get out of this lane and off this bridge. Look at that. Look at that down there, Greg said. That's the Van Wyck, backing all the way up from LaGuardia. Damn rubberneckers. What are you looking at? He shouted. Somebody get a friggin' tow truck and move this guy. Greg, look, Annabel cried. That lady has a baby in her arms. Oh my God, Cynthia said. Someone's going to hit her. What is she doing? She's got a little boy. She's holding his hand, Mimi said, panicking. Oh, this is nuts, Greg said, yanking his car door open. He put one leg out on the road and stood up. Greg, careful, Annabel shouted. Get back in your car, Greg shouted at the woman. The man with the woman was yelling and waving at her, too. The baby was screaming its lungs out, and the woman was clearly upset. Suddenly, Greg was gone, running next to the cars in front of them on one side, and the cars insisting on passing the stalled vehicle on the other. Cynthia dove over the front seat, stretching to reach the wheel. She pointed. Mimi, on the steering column, that knob. Yeah, that one. Pull it out. It's the emergency flashers. Mimi found it, and their headlights and taillights began to flash. Where's Greg? I can't see him. Annabel pulled on the handle of her door, preparing to get out. Don't, Cynthia said. Those drivers are crazy. But I don't see Greg anymore, she said. They were all craning their necks now, trying to find him. I think he ran after the little boy, Mimi said. God, I hope he didn't get hit. Okay, I'm going. Well, that was kind of a bizarro episode, wasn't it? Even I have to say, gosh, we almost didn't even get out of the parking lot in this one. We're crawling along. Oh my. Well, hopefully things are going to pick up next week and we'll finally get to Forest Hills. So I just want to remind everyone we have our detention club at patreon.com. It's called The Class of 74 at patreon.com, where we have a Zoom meeting every week, which is extremely informative for me, but it's also just a lot of fun because these people are the nicest people in America. And chances are, if you like listening to this podcast, you're probably a pretty nice person yourself. So come on and see us. Hang out with us. We're building a community of like-minded people who need to get out of this real world once in a while and have some fun. So I want you guys to have fun this week. And I want you to remember that we don't drink and drive anymore, ever, but we do have fun. And I want you to have fun. And I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.